Thank you again for joining me for the Daily Bread Bible Study. This is day 210 for Tuesday, July 28th, 2020, focusing on Isaiah chapters 50 through 52. We have some themes continued in Isaiah chapter 50 from last time, the theme of God as the deliverer, and then also the theme of the servant making appearance again as well. So this time we see God asking in Isaiah 50 verse 2, "Why did no one answer when I called? Is my hand shortened that I cannot redeem?" Now the idea is that God can in fact still redeem, yet did not redeem Israel sooner because they did not respond to God's call. Isaiah compares them to kindlers of fire, lighters of firebrands in verse 11. Those who are eager to start fires and are then trapped by the flames that they've created. So the suffering in this imagery is a byproduct of people's own wayward actions, more than being caused by God. Additionally, the servant is given, quote, "the tongue of a teacher, that I may know how to sustain the weary with a word." Isaiah 50, verse 4. Now this servant listened to God, did not rebel against God's ways, and endured unjust suffering. This could be the prophet Isaiah, makes us Christians think about Jesus. Yet in all things, disgrace and guilt do not find the servant because God is with him. Whether the servant is Isaiah, Israel, or Jesus, it is God. God is the one who acts graciously towards the servant. So in Isaiah 51, God then addresses those that seek the Lord. In an image of the end of the age, God invites his people to, in Isaiah 51:6, "Lift up your eyes to the heavens and look at the earth beneath. For the heavens will vanish like smoke, the earth will wear out like a garment, and those who live on it will die like gnats, but my salvation will be forever, and my deliverance will never be ended." There is also a cryptic message about Rahab and a dragon, even, which indicates to me that we should be looking for a deeper meaning beyond the surface. Right, as we talked about last time, reference to Baal or Bel. There's a biblical story of Bel and the dragon. So the idea that the Babylonians were worshiping this false idol of a dragon. So this could be connected with it here. Not exactly sure, but I believe the main point of all of this is revealed in verse 11. So the ransom of the Lord shall return, and come into Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. The idea is that God is going to show up, deliver his people, and that they will come out of the exile in Babylon and be brought back to Jerusalem to be able to celebrate God in spirit and in truth and be worshiping there in Jerusalem. This is what in fact does happen. And so we give thanks to God that this is what has taken place. Again, images of the Babylonian exile come to mind, and the hope is that the exiles will return to Jerusalem in glory again, as in verse 22 saying, "Thus says your sovereign, the Lord, your God, who pleads the cause of his people. See, I have taken from your hand the cup of staggering. You shall drink no more from the bowl of my wrath. And I will put it into the hand of your tormentors, who have said, 'Bow down that we may walk on you.' And you have made your backs like the ground, and like the street for them to walk on." God is going to undo it. And in fact, those who had been persecuting and oppressing the Jews and the Israelites, that the oppression will end, and they will in fact have to endure suffering through the hands of God. Moving on to Isaiah chapter 52, We have again a vision of return from exile in Babylon. Isaiah 52 verse 1 says, "Awake and awake! Put on your strength, O Zion! Put on your beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city. For the uncircumcised and the unclean shall enter you no more. Shake yourself from the dust. Rise up, O captive Jerusalem. Loose the bonds of your neck, O captive daughter Zion." We also see that Egypt and Assyria are mentioned, two oppressors who have been overthrown. And so the end of exile is sweet in Isaiah 52 verse 7. "How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of the messenger who announces peace, who brings good news, who announces salvation, who says to Zion, your God reigns." Then we again see another reference to the servant, which is interesting if you replace the servant here in this portion of the text with Jerusalem or Zion. Now, it sounds more like the servant is an individual, but it's interesting if you replace it with Zion and Jerusalem. It fits very well with the themes that have been discussed in this chapter and this whole section as a whole. So I don't know exactly what's going on in the text and with the servant, but we know that God is acting and delivering nonetheless. And so that whenever you feel in exile, may God act and deliver you from your suffering and bring you back to celebrate with joy.